So this is my 74 F250 Highboy, 6th generation truck, and it represents a lot of trucks from back in the day with how they were used. Single cab, 8-foot bed, beat up bed, because these were work trucks. These were trucks used on the farm, on the construction sites. Most of them didn't have bed liners because you didn't care what the inside of your bed looked like. It was meant to be used, meant to be beat up, but the story is different today.
Here's the question. What's changed over the past 43 years?
Back in the 70s, this truck was rated to tow right around 6,000 pounds. And of course, the new truck can tow well over twice that. This marks the biggest difference between the two. More capability with the new F250. With these old F250s, at least with the 4-wheel drive, there were only a couple engine options, a 6-cylinder or a 360 V8. This one is definitely a little bit tired. No diesel option is important as well.
The more things change, the more they stay the same. Believe it or not, Tommy's truck and this truck do have something in common mechanically, and that is they both come with 2 different engines. This one comes with, ta-da! That is a 420 horsepower, 925 pound-feet of torque diesel. Whew, that thing's a beast. You can also get a 6.2 liter gas V8. And that'll go in here as well. Now this obviously feeds all 4 wheels through a proper transfer case, but here's the cool part. It also has solid front and rear axles, similar to Tommy's truck. Now there were some changes. Back in the day, Tommy's truck looked just like the half-ton truck. Well, in '99, Ford decided to have the heavy-duty trucks move away from the half-ton trucks, and all the heavy-duty ones had their own look to them. But then things really changed back here, because in the 80s especially, trucks went from being mostly like that to this. That's right, a lot of 4-door vehicles started coming on because people realized they can combine a family vehicle, a weekender, and a work truck all into one. And this is probably the most extreme example of it because $76,000. I am a huge fan of this camera angle. I mean, having the software interpret, because these are in the mirror so they point outward, but make the ground look like you're flying above it, it's just fantastic, and it really is fairly accurate.
Now I may not have fancy cameras, but an old truck like this, I've got all sorts of visibility. So I back up the old-fashioned way. Ford never called these trucks Highboys from the factory, but it is in reference to an F250 with a divorce transfer case. And even though it looks like it's lifted, this truck is the stock ride height, which is crazy. And this little step down here, it's not factory, but it's very useful because these trucks really were high. And without it, it can be tricky getting in the cab.
Ta-da! Yeah, it's cool little option on these trucks. You know what else is optional for this year? Believe it or not, you can get a King Ranch with a vinyl floor. So you can actually get muddy and wash it out. So it goes back to utility. However, this doesn't have that. This has rather thick, really nice carpets, leather seats. Nowadays, you can have somebody who's timid with trucks drive one of these for a few days and really get comfortable quickly. And that's the big difference, because back in the day, when you had a truck that was a truck, it was ponderous, didn't steer great. There's so many different things. It's almost incalculable compared to your truck. However, the bottom line is you have the same seating angle.
Yep.
You have a very similar feel of girth around you. I mean, you feel like you're driving a big hunk of steel.
Absolutely.
Even though this is a big hunk of aluminum and steel.
Now in the 70s on these trucks, there were really three big options which differentiated this truck from a standard work truck. First off, cruise-o-matic automatic transmission, power assist brakes, and power assisted steering. These options were not necessarily commonplace in trucks back in the day, and they were real luxuries if you could afford them.
There is room for 5 people in here. Tommy's has 3. But what's really interesting to me is the massaging seats. Oh my God. I actually pull into my driveway because we get these things for a little while, like a week. And I just let it massage me until my wife starts yelling at me to come in for dinner.
You know, one thing I desperately miss on these old trucks is right here. Smoker windows, vent windows. They always seem to let the perfect amount of air and wind. And in terms of entertainment, typically you'd have an AM radio in this. I do have air conditioning, which is super cool, or it did from the factory. But the biggest entertainer is what was up here. This is aftermarket, but it's a CB radio. However, one perhaps less entertaining thing is right here. Because the Highboys had a narrower frame, the gas tank is in the cab, literally right behind the rear seat here. So if you got in a collision or you were a smoker, you might find some trouble.
All right, so here's where a lot of changes it makes the truck self-explanatory. And the reason I say that is because there are so many conveniences in this thing that make the truck, frankly, the easiest thing to use and the most logical. It goes beyond just being a regular everyday truck to something that babies you even when you want to crawl into the back of it. Ta-da! LED strip lights. Block the runway.
With the new truck, we've got a level of sophistication in the suspension with the front coils.
Oh yeah.
And in the interior. Back then we've got a big comfy bench seat that does a lot of your suspension absorption.
This truck does a few things that I really like. One thing is that it's unique because you don't see many of them on the road, so it's cool looking. And the other thing it does is it has a unique smell to it, which harkens back to a different day.
Sure.
Was it better back then? Some of you guys are gonna say that. I disagree. But I gotta say, I mean, for a proper good old school work truck, this vehicle really does check an awful lot of the boxes, you know? It's just cool.
Back when this truck was new, four-wheel drive really wasn't all that common in these trucks. It was kind of a luxury, and a luxury that not a lot of people purchased because it was expensive, and trucks, once again, were mainly used to carry things, to do work, and you didn't really need four-wheel drive in a lot of situations. But if you did get four-wheel drive, like this Highboy with this divorce transfer case, it's kind of a longer process than the new one to put it into 4 high or 4 low. So first you gotta come in here and move this big lever, which is always gonna be a little bit resistant to move. And then you gotta come out, it's snowing, it's hailing, it's raining, there's dirt flying, I'm getting wet. Come out here, and you gotta lock the hubs on both sides. Now what I like about this is it's a very mechanical system, so I know if it's engaged or disengaged. The new one is just a little knob that you twist, which is very convenient. However, there are also lockable hubs on that new truck as a backup or as an alternative. Unlock these or I'll forget, I can guarantee it.
Now think about these sunroofs in pickup trucks. I'm not a huge fan because this is not what I would want if I was serious about off-roading. But I mean, if you're using this as a family vehicle and it's something that you're going to be driving every day as a regular car, which frankly most people will be, yeah, it's pretty cool. I mean, look at that. That is a big sunroof. And I believe, look at that. So in case you're out on safari, you can almost stick your body out there. While Tommy should be able to hang out there with no problem. This truck has a lot going on for it. This is your Texas Millionaire's truck, but it's still a truck. It is still, at the end of the day, a truck, no matter how much you want to loosen it up because how comfortable it is, how easy it is to drive. Doesn't get great mileage. We're averaging 16 miles per gallon right now. I don't know what your truck gets.
Oh, less than that. Like 8.
8, oh, there you go.
Yeah. Four-wheel drum brakes, four-wheel disc brakes, so a lot more braking power with the new truck, and of course ABS traction control, all that jazz. You know, we've got no headrest in here, we've got no shoulder belts, we've got no airbags.
No.
And we've got not a lot of rollover protection, so there's a lot of visibility too.
Oh yeah.
I mean, it's a huge windshield. Bubbling my paint is rust. I hate that. I have to repaint that section.
What about this section?
Weight reduction, it's different. So ultimately, the big difference between these two trucks is 43 years has taken a toll on this largely non-galvanized body and bed. Take a look at these massive rust holes I have in the side of this truck. And in 43 years, that F250 King Ranch may not look this bad, and that's largely due to the aluminum construction. But 76 is a lot of money.
Yes, it is a lot of money, but then again, this is a different era. This is an era where people buy these vehicles because they want something for their families, for their friends, they want to go on a weekend and have some fun, and at the same time, maybe they'll work at a work site.
That's true. And back in the day, this truck was largely intended for the farmer and the construction worker who needed a four-wheel drive to get to the work job.
It's amazing how far we've come, and I'm really curious what the next 43 years has in store, which I won't be alive for all of those, but you will.
Well, no, we'll just have to wait and see about that. Guys, thank you so much for watching.
For the Fast Lane Truck, this is Nathan Adlin.
And Tommy.
We'll see you next time.